Or when you're choosing your heating system, it's critical not to leave the whole thing to the last minute. Leave it to the plumber or the heating engineer to decide as and when. The amount of heat you need in a new house is very small, and it's a design feature that has to be incorporated in from the outset.
When you're selecting a heating system, if you're thinking about anything other than a gas boiler, then you need to calculate accurately how much heat you need and what the split is between space heating and domestic hot water. The size of the heat pump or whatever it is you're using is critical, and you can't work out the size if you don't know how much heat you need.
Look at your lifestyle. If you live in the house virtually 24/7 and you're there all day, then probably underfloor central heating, which works best on a low ambient temperature running on a constant basis, is probably best for you.
If you've got an old building, underfloor heating is a great way of heating it because it's discreet and it heats large spaces and high ceilings very well and very comfortably. But you do need to be aware of digging up original floors and destroying that essential fabric of the old building.
If you're in the house for only a short while in the morning and a short while in the evening and you're out all day, probably radiators are better for you because they have a better response time.
Keep it simple when you're trying to choose a heating system. It's actually the thing that's probably most likely to go wrong when it comes to living in the house. And you want to know what's actually part of your heating system when you're trying to identify that problem.
One of the key points about choosing a heating system is that if you've got mains gas available, you really ought to use it. 9 times out of 10, it makes sense to use mains gas because it's cheap and plentiful. All these solutions like heat pumps and biomass boilers really only begin to make sense when you're off the mains gas grid.
If we're talking about renewable heating systems, then your lifestyle will influence what heating system is going to suit you. Are you happy handling logs, or do you want the convenience of a heat pump? Make that decision early on and allow that to influence the design of the house.
If you're going to replace an old inefficient boiler with a wood pellet, wood chip or log burning boiler, you need to think about where you're going to store the fuel. You need a well ventilated place, and it needs to be large enough. And you also need to think about how accessible it is for deliveries.
Using wood as a fuel source is becoming increasingly popular, be that in the form of logs or wood pellets. Don't be scared to spend money on the machine that you buy. Buying sophistication will mean that the machine will pay for itself within 3 to 4 years, and it will be a pleasure to live with. You'll thank yourself every day for spending that little bit extra.